It's very easy to dislike and hate on Konami for practices that they made over the years. I do want to remind people though that Capcom used to be the same way. There was a very, very big swath of time where Capcom was canceling like every Mega Man project under the sun and refusing to greenlight anything. And yet Capcom recovered, came back, and I would argue for the most part, it's not perfect, but for the most part, has released a lot of good games and good collections. And Konami, to me, is in that same boat. They recently released Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, and I will actually have a link to it in my description, essentials for them on Amazon. I actually make a small commission if you buy it through there, so I appreciate that if you do. That said, it doesn't affect my opinion on the game. Like, I'm not sponsored by them. You buy anything through that list, I make a small commission. I have my opinions on anything. But with Suikoden, it's interesting to see this come back because it's not something anyone ever expected to come back until it was announced a little ways back. I believe back in year 2021 or 2022 that it was kind of coming back. And now that that remaster is out, it's made me think a lot about how the past of gaming is being celebrated in many ways right now in a way that I didn't expect it to be 10 years ago. It looked more and more like games were going games as a service and single player was being dropped a little bit at a time. And I always thought there was room for both of these things. So let's take a look at Suikoden a little bit today, why it actually matters that this came back, what some of the changes are, and the importance of being able to play these past games. If you enjoy the video, you want to leave a like, subscribe, I appreciate you very much. I'll talk to you a little bit at the end about our shop, which is something really fun and special to me. And I do have a question of the day for you, which is, what are your thoughts on games like this? And are there other games that can be RPGs, whether they're from the West or Japan or wherever, anything like that you'd want to see come back in a remaster type collection? Or even maybe it already has, but you want a more faithful collection? Let me know. Now, one thing I want to mention that is probably the biggest change to me, obviously other than, the games being in HD, right? The biggest change to me is the script. Now, when we talk about a script changing for a game or a movie that's already been out, immediately people are like, oh no, don't, why are we messing with it? Because a lot of times it comes to discussions of things like censorship or messing with the author intent or story, things like this. With Suikoden, it is actually the opposite. This is to make the game more faithful to the original games. And this was actually mentioned in an interview back in 2022 with a game's producer whose name I cannot say, and I don't even want to because I know I'll butcher it. So out of respect, we will just call this Producer D. And he said for the original games, the size of the original dialogue box was quite small, and there wasn't a lot that we could fit in there. And what's interesting about this is it's because of language differences. Going on to say Japanese is a language that can say a lot in a very short amount of space. But for English and other languages, you need a lot of space to say the same thing usually, essentially needing more words to communicate an idea that takes fewer words in Japan. So in this game, we have expanded the size of those dialogue boxes, and that has let us retool and work the localization to get us more in tune with the Japanese script. Meaning that if you ever played these games or you ever wanted to, in a lot of ways, this would be the best time to do it because you're actually going to get that author intent and you're actually going to get what they wanted the game to be instead of what translators had to make the game. Also worth noting that while there are a lot of translators who were kind of doing the Lord's work back then, because there weren't as many people who would know both languages, let alone go into the games industry and work on it, despite that mattering, I believe that there was also fundamental misunderstandings when it came to a lot of translations. You can see this in anime, you can see it in gaming, just all over the place. You can see issues with people misunderstanding what something said in Japanese and totally changing it and butchering it in the West. Actually, even the original release of Final Fantasy VII, there were a lot of mistranslations that affected the story. And so going back and changing those is something that does matter to a lot of people. So to see this game come back in a more, I guess I would say, way that is honoring that author intent and actually going back and preserving that script, I think that that's really, really awesome to see. But that's, even though it's the biggest change to me, it's not the only thing that this is doing. One thing this is doing is actually preserving these games for, future generations. Now, they've added some quality of life changes that you can interact with if you want to. You can also choose not to. There are some things like auto battles and things like that. For me, a lot of times I don't interact with that kind of thing in a game because I don't want to. Like, to me, a lot of the RPG is doing these random encounters, doing these random battles, all that stuff. Even the grinding, like, yeah, I'm going to take my time compared to when I was a kid. I'm not going to sit there at the Final Fantasy X arena and go out and collect monsters for 10 hours a day because I don't have the time. But I'm still going to do that kind of thing in a game and just split it up because I enjoy that side of RPGs. So what's cool about this is that for people where it's just so overwhelming that they can't even get into this type of game, maybe this is like a starter RPG for them, something like that, they are able to use these quality of life features in order to actually enjoy the game and actually get into this genre. And while I understand some people not liking those, I do think it's important to get people interested in the genre because they'll go on to try more difficult or other things that don't necessarily have those features simply because this game did. So that's important to me, that idea. But that said, there is new HD background illustrations, there's new effects, there's new environmental audio. This isn't like a simple, we threw it on modern hardware, here you go, eat it up, lap it up, you dog. We do see that in the games industry. It's something that has unfortunately been a problem for a long time. And with Konami's frustrating launch of the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, even though they've had other games that have done very well, things like the Castlevania collections and, a handful of things, Contra, it is something that people have to worry about a little bit. Are you rushing this? Because even with your company, that game, which is your game, came out and had problems. It's a lot better now, but it's a fair critique and a fair thing to worry about. So that said, it looks like that's not going to be a problem here. They've actually gone through and really attempted to actually take their time, and it's also not as expensive as a lot of games are, being $50 USD, I believe about 45 euros for your copy. It's good to see. They're not milking it. It's not something where it's being butchered. It's something where it's going to be more faithful. It's a turn-based RPG, which is something that I feel like the games industry has sadly moved away from. I want more games like this. I like that they're doing this. This makes me happy. This is one of those things that I think should be celebrated because this is the work of people in decades past that shouldn't just be thrown by the wayside just because it's old. But more and more nowadays, there is this idea of thing old, thing bad. And I'm glad to not see that plaguing or affecting the Suikoden series, and that people are going to be able to get into this, some back into it, some for the first time ever, and it will lead to them getting into other games of a similar genre. So if you enjoyed this video, you want to leave a like, subscribe, we appreciate you very much. I know a big part of this video is about game preservation, single player games, things like that, but I do think there is also a space for service games or online games, things like that. So if you want to support us through a game like that, we do have a Fortnite code, DJAY123. We also have our own Amazon store, which is, going to be RPG inspired stuff. I think you'll like that. I'll leave the link to that in the description and pinned comment. And finally, we have our own store, cosmobunny.shop, where we have coasters, keychains, trays, and more made from recycled paper. These are from comics. We don't print images. We have never, and I guarantee you this, printed a single image for a coaster, keychain, tray, or anything. We've never scanned them, nothing like that. What we do is we take comics, manga, magazines, all this stuff that is damaged. We recycle it, repurpose it, save some of that paper, make something out of resin for your home, whether it be a coaster, keychain, we do light switch covers, all kinds of amazing stuff, and we recycle the rest and keep it out of landfills. We're also planning to be at a couple of events this year. I believe one of them's coming up actually in just like a month or two, month and a half, and then another one in September. So I will leave the information for those on the screen right here. I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you for supporting this channel. It is probably the smallest channel that I work on, but it is one that I have a huge passion of. I spent countless hours growing up playing RPGs, writing fan fiction type stuff, all of this, and It's something I'm very passionate about, so thank you. Have a fantastic day. As always, everyone, stay shui.